so nice to see people in person and smiling faces. I don't know if we have anything to talk about with you guys. I don't know if we have a thing to talk about. We all know the problems that the city is facing. We don't have to spend a lot of time dwelling on that. So what we're going to talk about with you guys today are solutions. Where do we go from here? And you all are in a position to influence what downtown is and what it becomes. Ann, I'll start with you. What is something that you're using your position of power to do to make downtown a better place for everyone?
My first focus and predominant focus for the first few months and ongoing will be to actively create those formalized working relationships with other public safety partners. I think that has been lacking, and I think that that has been a downfall that we have all suffered under. People have been victimized from crime because we have not worked together and opened lines of communication. We will only move forward when we work together, and that means we have to have conversations and dialogue. That is first and foremost for me.
Yeah, and with each other. You two met each other for the first time last night in person, right?
We did.
Very first time.
Not
the first time, but the first
but
time
the first time in person, which
yes.
is good. Marc, for you, you are in a position of power and influence. How are you using it to make downtown better for everyone?
Well, first I would just say I feel more like chief cat herder than having any real power, but I do think that it's important to acknowledge, and I've spoken about this before. The situation is dire. We are in a crisis, and we need to say that out loud and say that word consistently, and then act like it is true. And so our agency, in partnership with folks here, has embarked on setting up a command center style model to addressing chronic unsheltered homelessness in the downtown core, with the goal of within a year creating permanent exits for the folks who've been forced to live unsheltered downtown. Downtown is the highest concentration of unsheltered people in the county, and that is unacceptable. We have to do better.
Councilwoman, same question.
Yeah, so I am a citywide council member, and my first job is to give a damn about downtown, because this is the economic engine of the region. And yeah, home to 100,000 residents, and it's also the generator of 50% of the taxes of our general fund. And so what I'm doing in my position of leadership is making sure that that your voices, everybody in this room, are represented in what I'm doing on City Council, because you know what, your businesses are my businesses for the reasons I just stated. And so that's my broad approach, but more specifically, I'm focused on stabilizing downtown first and foremost. This is about reimagining downtown, but first and foremost, we need to make downtown a safe place. And there is no recovery without safety. And so, as Economic Development Chair, I am drawing the nexus between public safety and the health of our business community. I've been doing that in my committee, and I'm going to continue to do that. We need to invest more, and we need to pay attention to what is really happening here. So, kind of what Ann said, it's about supporting the leadership of the people that that have been recently elected. And Marc, he likes to say, I was appointed, but in fact, we've got a lot of great energy going in this direction already.
And given your background as a business owner, I don't think there's anybody in this room who questions whether you give a damn about businesses in downtown, but the same cannot be said for some of your fellow council members. You're one of 9. So for you, being a new council member who is trying to focus on businesses, focus on safety, how do you build those relationships to bring some of the other council members along?
Well, I was voted by people that want change. And so how I bring them along is simply giving voice to the people, doing what my constituents want. And I'm including residents and businesses. And that's where my legitimacy lies. And so what I will do is I will bring those new voices and build my policy agenda around it. And remind my colleagues that the services that their constituents want all over the city are paid for by the resources generated in downtown. Those are just 2 of my tricks.
I saw Councilman Lewis out there. Where are you? I was joking with him. I'd pull him up on stage. He was having a beer. Enjoy the beer, it's good. It was from Fremont, so he was saying, he told me he was trying to build bridges with you. That's good. Marc and Ann, something that I don't know whether you guys are going to agree on or be able to sort of work together on. Ann, you've made it very clear that you are going to take a more aggressive stance when it comes to prosecution of crime. First, we were having a Zoom call preparing for this, and you said, well, I want to define prosecution. Because it's not.
Remember that.
Yes, I remember everything. It's not always traditional prosecution. So how is your office going to decide whether someone needs to go the route of traditional prosecution or whether they need to go the route of diversion or some other services and not jail time? How do you make that determination?
Well, first, we did start a high utilizer initiative, as you may have become aware of. And for me, that really is important to understand the criteria for that, because we are looking at individuals who have been provided alternatives and it's just not working. And what we need to make sure we're doing is assessing what will work for the individual. And that's an important piece, because the longer we ignore someone and the fact that something is not working for them, the longer we have made their pathway to healthy relationships, to feeling like a sense of purpose, to being a person that they know is a contributing member of society. That is really the ultimate goal, in which I've really gotten to really enjoy getting to know Marc and these work that we get to do separately. But to me, it's extremely important to understand that someone has to do the role that I've been elected to do. Otherwise, we cannot get past some of the issues and get to the really good work.
And I guess, Marc, this is where I'm curious, because, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have lived experience.
That's
you
true.
You were previously homeless. Ann has committed to, in this high utilizer, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with, but 118 individuals who they're going to pay extra close attention to. And part of what she told me recently is that they want to book those people into jail, and they see that as a reset and giving them a timeout, if you will, from the behavior. Some of those individuals are homeless on that list of 118. I don't have the list, but I'm sure of it. Do you believe that putting them in jail, booking them into jail for low-level crimes, and giving them a reset is a good idea?
I think it depends. And I will say, off the top, I don't know that we're going to agree about everything, but I do think, and I want to say this to everyone, I am very confident that agree or disagree will be at the same table having the conversation. And that's actually what's critical, right? Because civic discourse, democracy functions when we talk to each other. And that is something that I am confident that we will always be able to do. That said, I will say, and we spoke a little bit about this last night, but, I began my career at the intersection of gang violence and homelessness, right? I was working in Massachusetts. And so, I believe fundamentally, and this is my role in this, right? Someone has to have Ann's job, someone has to have my job. I believe fundamentally that how we interrupt cycles of violence and crime are by addressing material needs that drive those cycles. People steal bread because they're hungry, not because they're mad at other people. That has always been the driver. My job is to create the ecosystem of supports and services, right, that might begin to answer those material needs. When I worked on gang violence in Massachusetts, I also was very clear with the hundreds of young men that I worked to support from the executive office, if you do something in your city, you will go to jail. I'm not going to stop that, right? Consequences exist in the society we have architected, and I am not undoing those consequences. And so I do very much agree, right, that there does have to be some role, right, for the criminal legal system. But the question, and we've talked a lot about this, is where is the handoff to the stuff that we do? And that is not tight right now, and we can just be very honest about that. I was walking from a meeting the other day, and I saw someone discharged from the King County facility, step out onto the street. They had the classic gray set suit, the bags with their stuff, and it was very clear they had nowhere to go that night. And we both agree that that is unacceptable.
And I think it's the coordination, right, that needs to be on point. And
yes,
you can applaud. It's the coordination that has been lacking, for lack of a better phrase. And I guess my question is, first of all, I don't think there's anybody, raise your hand if you think anyone should go to jail for stealing bread. I don't think anybody thinks that. But we also know that they're not just stealing bread. You know, let's be realistic about the impact to some of the downtown businesses. So going back to kind of the question, if you have someone that gets a reset by being booked into jail for a misdemeanor crime, and the end goal, of course, is to get people off the streets. If that person is homeless, do you think that's productive to give them a reset? Do you see the value in that?
I see, you know, again, I would say it depends, but broadly, I would say that where we are able to engage people and then create the appropriate pathways into service and support, that is good, right? Now, you know, I have personal opinions about the nature of the criminal legal system, but that again is not the point of the conversation we need to have as officials who need to manage the public good and the civic good. And so to that end, you know, I do really, I don't know how to say this. I really believe that the society we have has consequences, and that's okay. I'm not here to change that. That's not what I've been asked to do. But what I have been asked to do is ensure that you know, regardless what those consequences are, one of them should not be being unhoused. I do want to be really clear, though, that people experiencing homelessness are much more likely to be the victims of crime than to commit crime. 73% of people who experience homelessness report being victimized multiple times in the last year, right? We also know that people experiencing homelessness are likely to be approached by actual criminals and paid to steal, right? It is not uncommon for folks experiencing homelessness to be offered $50 to run into Target, snatch something, and they'll get another $50 if they get out with it successfully. We know that happens. And so the appropriate thing we need to do, yes, we can interrupt the person who is forced to live that way because of poverty, but we must appropriately target who is behind it.
Councilwoman, the policing situation has been a challenge. In fact, before I came down today, I wanted to go down to 3 and Pine and just check in on things, see how they were going. And it looks much better the last couple weeks. Hopefully that's permanent. But we know SPD is just woefully understaffed. They had a lot of officers down there today, but I don't know where they're pulling those officers from. What can you do on the council? I don't know if you're going to be able to bring some of your council members along to hire more officers, to give them more funding, but what can you do in the council to support the Seattle Police Department and their efforts downtown?
Well, first, I have to note that when it comes to working with our homeless population, we do need to also focus not just public safety, it's also services. And we are woefully short of dollars for mental health and addiction treatment. That is something that I've been banging the drum on. But I am working on some initiatives that I can't really talk about now because they're not fully baked, but we can't wait around for September and when we go through the budget to think about what is going to be any kind of increase to the police budget next year, because what I'm hearing from communities is we need to bring back the community policing teams. We need to bring back the elements of our community policing model that does build trust. And so I am working on something, and I can't really talk about it right now, but stay tuned. But the key is that public safety is also an equity issue. You know, it really is true. When I talk to people, it's not, these are people that do not have the privilege of not needing public safety in their neighborhoods that are heavily impacted by gun violence, whose businesses on Rainier Avenue are being broken into over and over again. So I think that we have to broaden the narrative, because too long I think that narrative has been driven by a very narrow segment of people that have the ear of counsel. So when you ask me, how do I bring along my colleagues? I bring along colleagues by inviting small businesses to my committee and having them talk about the impacts to their businesses. And it's not just their bottom line property issues. This is violent crime, and it's impacting their workers. So this is a worker safety issue. So what I can do is reframe the issue to the extent that I can, and bring the voices of people that are telling me this. I'm not making this up. And I think that people who are up for re-election might have gotten the memo that the people who elected me want to see change.
We were we were at a dinner last night, kind of a pre-DSA dinner, and I was asking some business owners, what do you want me to talk to them about? And one of the things I heard over and over from business owners in the business community is, ask them what we can do to help, which I think just speaks to where everybody's at. I mean, you're here for a reason. You care for a reason. I think this is something you can all answer. How can they help? Go ahead, Ann.
I mean, I hope we have a similar one. I really do think that this is not my role. This may not be my role, but this is personally why I have stayed committed to what I've been committed to, is we have a relational capital deficit, yes. Frankly. And so some of the things that I think I have to do because of the role I've been elected to is necessary for society, but really what is missing, I hear, yes, we need money, and I hear that we need housing, and we need services, but we really need your time. We need to be people's people. I didn't know that you knew the phrase. I thought I was developing it myself, but to think about respite care for families who have people dealing with substance use disorder. We need to be the people for other people and support them and start to be those healthy relationships for them so that they don't have the human tendency to go back to the same behavior that they have been around, but to break out of that and to have healthy relationships in the beginning of safe community for them. And that's how we end the cycle of crime. And that's how, if it's separate from that, that's how we start to address homelessness, right? Because we start to build a community. So for me, it really is, that's what I want you to do, is invest your time with people wherever you are in the 39 municipalities across the county, right? That's, to me, the most important.
And Marc, I want you to answer this, but also the element of money, which I'm sure that you guys have given money in some form. I would be scared to death to give my money to anything the city is doing. And only because, I mean, I don't have the kind of money you guys have to give, but you don't want to see it go to waste. And we have spent hundreds of millions of dollars trying to deal with this crisis, and it's worse than it's ever been. So however you want to answer the original question, but if you can also, how do they trust you with their money, you know?
I have the great fortune of being neither the city nor the county. So trust me.
Just give them your money.
So I do think, there's that adage in organizing, move at the speed of trust. And some of you know me, many of you, there are a lot of you, because we're back in person. Many of you don't, but my pledge, right, and similarly, is like, I will never step away from a table, and I believe fundamentally that it is important that we be, each other's people. I love that. That we be each other's people. And so hopefully how you will come to trust me is because I will not lie to you. And I will say straightforwardly, yes, it is very bad, and it has gotten worse. Those are not things you are making up, and I can show you the data that proves that, right? That is not a thing I'm afraid of. I'm also not afraid of if a thing that we are doing at the authority isn't working, saying, this is not working, and we need to figure out how to make it work. Because where I am accountable, again, is to making sure that people are not unhoused. And so that is not a pride thing, that is not an ego thing, that is I need to do everything I can. Everyone who is on my team needs to do everything that we can every day to make that the reality. And if we have to shift, then we have to shift. But I will say, in terms of what you can do, and I think that is a really critical question, what I would add is, I think it is important, and I'm going to say something that is, it's a little tedious, but it's true. Please come to public meetings and say that things should happen. Because I will tell you, when we try to build a thing or cite a thing or have a conversation that's going to house people, the people who show up are default against it. And it's not because of I'm concerned about people are going to be smoking here and what's that going to do to traffic. I had to have a conversation the other day about whether or not permanent supportive housing is linked to child abuse, which makes no sense. So I actually do need you to come to meetings and say, this is important work. This is for our community, and we support it. Because it is not just about you as people, it is you as leaders in the community across all 39 municipalities, making it clear that the only way out of the crisis we're in is by creating the options for people to live in. And that cannot be theoretical. That is real brick and mortar that has to go someplace.
Can I follow up on that? And then, Councilwoman, I want to get your thoughts on what people can do too. We met for the first time last night. You're very nice, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
It was very nice to meet you. But one of the first things you said to me is, we probably don't agree on everything, which I said, you're probably right. But, you know, you were just talking there, come to meetings. It's terrifying.
Oh, they're bad.
Well, I think it's terrifying in this city. And I saw Olga Sagan over there. I know, she's like mortified. But Prosecution, and she's gotten a lot of grief for speaking out. It can be really hard in this city. I have no doubt everybody here is compassionate. They want this dealt with in a compassionate way. Seattle is a special place in that regard. But they have a right to speak out and say, look, I don't want downtown to look like this. I'm trying to run a business. I want people to visit here. How do they speak out without fear of being labeled NIMBYs, right-wing, whatever thing the activist class comes up with? How do they speak out? How do you suggest they do that if they're fearful?
Call me.
Or me,
I'm
right?
Yeah, happy to coach you through it. But I will say, and I've said this repeatedly, and I say this, I also want to be clear here. So as I am a person with lived experience, part of my experience is I have two severe mental health conditions. I've had 2 separate psychotic breaks, both of which ended in the hospital. Happy to be here today. That's behind me. We love pharmacology. But what is important is that I fundamentally believe that no one should have to have a psychotic break outside, right? That is not a thing that should ever happen. I also believe that on your way to buy milk, you shouldn't have to learn how to de-escalate someone who's in active psychosis. Those 2 things are true. And for residents who are trying to navigate the city, right, navigate the county, it is fully appropriate to be like, this is stressful. I don't know how to deal with this. I mean, I went to school to learn how to deal with it, right? And so I really want to lift up that, like, we have to let go of a narrative that there are heroes and villains. That is simplistic, and unfortunately, that time ended when we were 10 and we're adults now. And the reality is that the work is complex, it is gray on the best days, like our sky. And that just has to be okay. That just has to be where we live, right? We live now in complexity because we're grown. And that is often, frankly, my response to people who I think are too simplistic on either side of the spectrum. It's just like, I'm sorry, I do adult work, and when you are ready to do that with me, please come on over.
I like it. So you heard that. If you're speaking out and people are mean to you on Twitter, you call Marc.
Hey.
Marc's going to help. Councilwoman, what do you need from these fine people?
Well, first I want to thank the people in this room that are already helping by funding the Partnership for Zero. And I know that many of you in your companies have a social responsibility program, and so I know that a lot of you are really trying to help, and your dollars do matter. Here's what I think that you can do. I need backup. Council members that are doing the right thing, that are taking risks, need you to recognize that in public, because sometimes I wonder if my colleagues recognize the latitude that they have to do things differently, because there really is a different mood in the electorate right now, and I think that it is safer to express a different opinion. And I go to work every single day downtown. I see what happens. And I answer my phone. My staff is here. They pick up the phone. I read my emails. I need that kind of backup. When I go to a committee meeting and I say, this is what I'm hearing, because that's what I mean when I mean I need to bring your voices to the table. So it might be tedious, and you might have given up a long time ago writing to City Council. In fact, last night at the pre-funk event, a lot of people were surprised I was there. They say, this is the first time a council member has been here. Well, what's up with that? We should care. I care. We are all on the same team. Nobody's going to say they don't want public safety and they don't want people who are living unhoused to stay that way, okay? So it's all a matter of actually rising up a different, just telling your leaders what you think.
Yeah.
And when I say that we are on the same team, I'm supporting Mayor Harrell. I am thrilled that we've got Ann and finally a plan, a new plan based on best practices. Deborah Juarez is doing a great job as council president. There is reason for optimism. Plus, people are coming back to work, and that should be led by City Hall, by the way.
Positive reinforcement can go a long way.
Yes,
positive reinforcement to
because-
politicians who are doing the right thing. Let's end with this
exactly.
because
we're all human beings, and people like to be recognized for the good works that they do.
yeah, a one-word answer because we're out of time. I got the little beeping red thing down there. One word. Marc, we'll start with you. I don't want to ruin John's speech, but he's going to get up here and talk about the state of downtown. One word. Marc, what's the state of downtown?
Strong.
Strong. That's such a default. I gotta give it to you. Okay, Ann, state of downtown.
Hopeful.
Hopeful, okay. Councilwoman? Better be a good one.
I know.
You get the final word.
I know, optimism and et cetera. I think the state of downtown is gestating. I think that it is.
Spell it, please.
No,
I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that. That's good.
I think.
I'd like a redo.
Yeah, no.
If it's quick.
I think it's on the brink of another level, another era of glory.
We're sticking with gestating, and that's how we're going to end this. City Attorney Ann Davison, CEO of the Regional Homelessness Authority, Marc Dones, City Councilwoman Sara Nelson. Thank you all for being here and for answering questions.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.